Good afternoon, I'm Rob Gilmour and I'm here today to give you an update on the budget that was handed down on Tuesday evening. Just as a little bit of feedback from our perspective and how it impacts clients, some of the things that we're going to be looking out for and contacting you over the coming period to discuss your specific circumstances. Firstly, I have to say I probably didn't have very high expectations of the budget. There's not a lot of political capital in Canberra to make the tough decisions and focus on real reform. And what I mean by that is readjusting the tax base in Australia away from income taxes and company taxes to a more consumption-based tax system. Those decisions weren't taken and I believe some of those decisions do need to be taken, particularly in light of the difficult circumstances that face Australia at the moment. And we really need everything to go right for our economy if we're to succeed going forward, and some tough decisions I do hope will be made at some point before they are actually forced on us. However, looking at what the budget contained, I think the Treasurer did get it spot on in terms of focusing on small business and companies and the tax concessions that have been extended, certainly to larger businesses, and the gradual decline in the company tax rate to 25%. At the end of the day, when governments tax profits, they tax growth. They tax the ability for companies to reinvest in their businesses, and that includes employing people. And at this difficult time for the economy, we really need to focus on everything that we can do to maintain employment, because ultimately unemployment is the Achilles heel of Australia. And if we start to see unemployment, then our debt is certainly going to catch up to us, and that's where we'll see huge ramifications if we start to see those numbers soften. So in my mind, that was a good move by the Treasurer, and our clients who are small businesses will be happy that they can continue to enjoy the measures that were announced at the last budget. And furthermore, our clients that have slightly larger businesses, those businesses with turnover under $10 million, will now get access to the small business concessions. And that does open up huge opportunities for planning, not only in terms of tax on year to year and depreciation, but actually how you manage that transition from a business owner to later on in life when you're thinking about retirement and utilising some of those concessions that have been available to smaller businesses. With all that, the actual biggest changes that we saw in the budget was around superannuation, and this is going to affect everyone. It's absolutely huge. The biggest changes since 2007. This is where we'll be having continuous conversations with clients over the next 12 months. Some of the provisions that have been announced were effective from Tuesday night. Others will take time to implement, and it will obviously be dependent on the government getting re-elected. In short, some of the big decisions that were taken was to put a lifetime cap on contributions to superannuation of $500,000, and this was retrospective going back to 2007. So no longer are those big lump sum non-concessional contributions able to go into a super fund, and I do believe this as a policy decision is slightly short-sighted because certainly people later on in life when they sell large assets do like to take advantage of that opportunity to grow their superannuation savings when previously they hadn't. However, we now look faced with a $500,000 limit. The other big change was capping the amount of tax-free pension phase account-based pensions to $1.6 million. What this essentially means is any account balances in pension phase over $1.6 million need to get transferred to an accumulation account, and they will be taxed at the 15% rate instead of the pension rate, which is 0%. This is clearly aimed at larger balances and higher income earners. At the end of the day, there is planning that we can do with clients that are faced with balances over $1.6 million. And one of the big things we certainly will be looking at, and that we have already been looking at, is evening up member account balances. There's absolutely no point in one member now having $2 million in their account with the other member having $500,000 when we know that the $2 million account is now going to be subject to tax. So certainly some planning can be factored into those strategies going forward. Look, the other major change was around transition to retirement pensions. The government has announced that those pensions will be taxed, the earnings will be taxed inside superannuation, so it does negate one of the main benefits that people entered into these arrangements while they were still working. So really it's going to be coming down to a genuine need for that income to supplement a lower income while working. There were some other changes. Concessional contributions have been cut to $25,000. Again, later on in life, that's going to be difficult for people who want to bump up their retirement savings. But a bit of a sweetener on that is those concessional contributions. There will be a rolling 5-year period where if people who are contributing stop contributing for a number of years, they can then catch up. So that does also allow a bit of planning when income tends to be lumpy or large assets are sold. No longer will we have the 10% rule in terms of making deductible contributions to superannuation, and they've also removed the work test that previously used to be in place for 65 to 75-year-olds. So all in all, a lot for us to get our head around. There were some other changes to income tax. There were some other changes, or many other changes in the budget. They are the main things that we're talking to clients about at the moment, and we'll look at the detail in the legislation. And as I said, look, it's not certain. We need to get through the next election before any of this becomes law, but I think it's prudent that we start planning ahead for those sort of things now. You'll be hearing from me separately, but for now, thank you very much.